All right. Hey everyone, how's it going? Solomon Christ here in a node training video. That's right. We're going to be learning as many nodes as we can in n8n, and this video is all about the HTTP node. All right. So let's dive right in and start learning. All right. So here we are in n8n, and the HTTP node is one of the most powerful nodes around. It's the most versatile one, and we use it a lot in so many different things. Many times you're trying to get access to a website, and it's just like there's no API endpoint. There's no place for me to, gather the data or information. How do I get this info, right? Many times it's a brand new service, and you need to build an app or something that will connect it up and allow you to do things. And so HTTP nodes are very, very powerful. We use it to download, to upload. It just helps you with so many things to interact. So this lesson here, we're going to actually go over the HTTP node, and by the end of it, you should know how to use it. You should know some of the challenges that you'll have along the way, and you should have a better grasp of the overall HTTP node. So let's go ahead and let's start off by creating an HTTP node here. I already created an actual, basic trigger. So that would just be like a manual trigger. So if you just type in manual trigger, just like that, and you'll be able to, get this specific trigger here. And then from there, I'm going to just type in HTTP, and we've got the HTTP request node. All right. So here it is. This is the basics of what it looks like here. All right. And so you'll see you've got parameters, you've got settings, and you can easily go to the docs to find out even more. One of the most interesting parts of this actual node is the import curl. All right. You're going to use that a lot. In various services, many places have curl, and you could just copy paste it in, and all of a sudden it just auto sets this entire node up. So you don't even have to do much, especially for certain APIs and stuff that you're trying to find online. You can actually get it all done, because sometimes you're like, is this a get? Is it a post? Is it what is it? Usually it's a get or a post, one or the other. And then what exactly do I need to send along? Am I sending a bearer token or not? Right? Those things are there, and it's kind of confusing. But with the curl commands, if someone already has a curl, if a service gives you the curl, use it, because that'll save you a lot of that headache. All right, so we're actually going to use the OpenAI stuff, but manually using the API itself. We're not going to be using the way n8n does it, but we're actually going to use it as an HTTP request. So we're going to go into the documents here for OpenAI, and you're going to see here for the developer quick start. So chances are you're going to get to the overview here. So click on the quick start here. Over here it's JavaScript. So even here in the overview, you're going to click on this little drop down here and select curl. Now all you have to do is just copy that, and you see where it says Open API key. That's what you actually have to get. All right, so now I'm going to assume you already know that, but if you don't know where that is, you're going to go up here into your settings, and on the left side, you're going to see your API keys. All right, so that's where you're going to get it from. So the curl over here, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to come back into n8n. I'm going to go to my HTTP request, and over here, I'm going to click on import curl. I'm going to paste exactly what I got from that API, and I'm going to click on import. There we go. It's set up everything for me. I don't have to do anything else. So now I can actually use, OpenAI's GPT systems and the API endpoint right from this. Okay. And it says bearer token. This is it right here. So now I have to actually get my API key. You can click on copy once you get that there. And now you're just going to paste that into here. And so now if you did everything right, you should be able to click on execute step, and you'll get a whole bunch of data back. So now it's actually connected to the, OpenAI service. Now, one of the things that you want to do inside of here, especially when you're working with OpenAI, with other services, it's different, but with OpenAI specifically, number one, you want to choose which project you're on. I usually will create a brand new project per API key. All right. So create a new project. And then from there, once you've got that project set up, in fact, I'll create a new project so you can see this here. So we'll call this a test project. All right. And then you'd create an API key for that test project. And when you're actually inside of this new project, one of the things is once you've got your key going on, we actually want to limit the actual AI systems that this key is using. Many times you'll find that, different actual GPTs are being used, and many times it's like your key was stolen, especially if you're sharing workflows and by mistake your key got stolen. All right, and that happens. Well, OpenAI fees go up massively. So one of the things that we want to do is first make sure you're in the correct project. So I'm in test project here. And then at the bottom left of the project, there's something called limits. Okay, so this is important here. You come over here, and on the right side, you can actually set a budget for how much. This will protect you, especially if you've got keys and you're doing things for clients. You want to protect your budgets, and on top of that, select which models. Now, I know that usually I'm using GPT 3.5 Turbo or 4, and usually the mini models and stuff like that, right, to save money. But I could block all of them, for example. So I can just click on all of them to block if I want, or I can allow certain ones. So over here, I'm going to click on allow, and I could be like, okay, you know what? I just want to use GPT 3.5, let's say, right? There it is, GPT 3.5 Turbo. And now this key will no longer have access to any of the others. That's it. That's all it's got access to. So what that does for me is I know that GPT 3.5 is generally low in price. So even if my stuff gets stolen, and if I set a budget here, I know that it's not going to go above that budget. All right. And it'll get locked off, and it'll just return an error. And it's like, okay, I protected myself. There's so many people who don't do this. Then they put their project on GitHub, or they share it with a friend, and all of a sudden their key gets stolen, and now they're running up a bill, and they're like, what happened? And, the OpenAI team has generally been good, to me. I'll message them, I'll email them and say, hey, you know what, I use that, but they'll give you credits back. But just that helps you now to really help out in protecting yourself when it comes to using APIs. All right, let's get back into our HTTP request here. All right, so now many times, the documentation of any API that you're going to use is going to show you how to call these actual APIs. In this case here, I'm actually using the OpenAI one so that you guys can see how this is. But usually developer documents are like this. All right, they're going to tell you how to use the HTTP command to actually do this here. So let's say I want to generate text from a simple prompt. So I can now take this curl here, just like that, and I can now duplicate this here. If I double click that there, and I just click on import curl, I could paste this inside. And you could see here now, if I take my new OpenAPI key here, if I just expand this, you can actually see what it's doing here. Specifically, the data that's being sent is which GPT model am I using, what's the rule, and it says write a 1-sentence bedtime story about a unicorn. Based on the model that I put inside of there, it was 3.5 Turbo. And you could go over here and you can actually grab that model by copying that, come back down here. Let's actually do that there, paste it in. And now if I actually execute the step, there it is. There's my story. Once upon a time, there was a magical unicorn named Sparkle, danced under the moonlight until she fell into a peaceful slumber. Okay, there you go. All right. So now I could actually do all of my AI requests from a single API call. All right. All in a single HTTP request. So that's very, very useful. Now, this isn't the only service that has APIs. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of services out there. Everything that you're used to using, from Google to Meta to like Microsoft and everything, they all have API calls. And the HTTP node is a very powerful node that allows you to access many of these things here. So now that we've seen an example of how to use this, now let's actually go into what are the different options available for the actual HTTP node and what we could do with it. So the first thing is get into some good naming habits. So like HTTP, doesn't really tell me what I'm doing. So usually you want to put in the name of the API or the service that you're going to be using. So in this case here, if this is an OpenAI call, I'd put that in and I just, hit enter. So now at least it's named correctly and I can actually, understand it in a bigger overall flow, what it is. Whereas these ones here where it says HTTP request one, request, I really don't know. I mean, I've got a little idea that it's OpenAI because of this, but it's easier when you can actually see that. All right. So here we are now, and you're going to see the methods. Methods are, the way that, HTTP commands are generally run. Now, if you did any programming in the past, you're going to remember that there are, there's usually get and post. Those are the two most important ones. Get has everything inside of the URL. So a URL can actually send data using a question mark and so on and so forth. However, we get into the dangers of what we call injection. And that is where you can have someone who injects data into your system using that same set of stuff, because it's like, hey, I can easily see a variable. And when I can see a variable name, and usually people will put like and variable equals something. Well, back in the day, when there was not that much security, you could put in different usernames, for example, and access that user's information, right? So stuff like that, it got really, really bad. So then we got post opportunities where now things are being sent as data via a post command. It doesn't get into the URL itself, but it's sent along as the data package portion. And when it gets sent along in the post command now, it's a different way of sending things. After that, you get your URL. And this is what we call an endpoint, right? So whenever you hear the term endpoint, it's usually a URL. This is where things are. And there's many different types of URLs. For example, OpenAI has several of them, right? Some are for completion, some are for images, and so on and so forth. So there's different endpoints that they've set up. Whatever endpoint that your API is going to use, well, that's a URL. But for example, I can actually just do a regular get, and I can get any page I want. So let's go into something fun. Let's go into Google's technology news. All right. So this is like Google's tech news, and put this as a get, and I want to get that URL. If I just ran that alone, you're going to see that it's going to pull the entire HTML. Now it's so big that, if I show that data, it's got 3.2 megabytes of data. I just downloaded that data and it's JSON. So I'm going to open this up inside of Notepad++ here. All right. And this data here, it's massive. It's the entire HTML page. All right. And it comes out as JSON data. All right. So this is a lot of data, and you just saw what it looks like inside of Notepad++ when I actually downloaded it. It's the entire HTML of that page. So one of the things that you could do with HTML is you can actually do a markdown. So I'll do a markdown here, and that'll grab the data there. And literally, I'll just click on execute step. And it's asking for the HTML. I'm just going to put here json.data because that's what it came in as. There it is. Okay, so now it's got the entire thing here inside of an actual field. All right, and the destination key is called data. All right. So now I've actually got this information here, and there's a lot of cool things that I could do with it. I can now just take this information and just have, OpenAI summarize this. So I can actually use my other HTTP request here. All right. Just like this one here. And right now I could actually change this here. This is going to be GPT 3.5. And then I'm going to say here, summarize the top stories for me from the following information. And now specifically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put inside of here json.data. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to actually put this inside of a substring here. And this is actually a little bit more advanced coding here. But what a substring does is it reduces the size down because GPT 3.5 has got a smaller amount of data that it could take in. So string, we're going to take that JSON data itself, and we're going to actually get a substring here. So substring. And then from here, from 0 to, I'd say 4096. Let's try that. See how that runs. So that's only getting the first, 4096 characters. All right. So I'm going to save that, and let's execute this. All right. And now I've got the top stories there. Like it literally now has summarized this. There it is. The top stories from here, what they are. So the top stories from technology section are nothing's first true flagship photo plays it a little safe. Nothing. A hardware startup has released a new smartphone that is being described as their flagship device, but is considered to play it safe. Hardware startup, nothing reveals its most avant-garde smartphone yet. Nothing phone 3. So let's just go and see. Did it actually say something here? Oh yeah, there you go. There's the top 3 things right here. So it literally picked that up, and it, automatically kind of told us what's going on. It did a summary. I literally thought that this was a mistake, but I go here now and I'm like, oh yeah, there's something called nothing. And, it literally just parsed that, and it, did that. So imagine you're creating a news, a nice little news bot or something, right? Like now you're seeing how you can use this and the HTTP request just to get that data, simple data, to create a simple news system, right? So now let's look a little bit more deeper under the hood in HTTP request nodes. We also have different things that we could do with it. There's input types such as JSON, binary, or URL query parameters that you can put inside of here. There's headers, as you are seeing here. You got different authentication types. You could actually have predefined credentials if you know the information. This is really useful if you've already done one of the credentials inside of n8n. then you can actually go and grab it. And now you don't have to actually put in that bearer information, all that. It automatically knows it. All right. So we've used that in several of our other trainings already. But this is, really, really important is, if you've already put the credentials in, you can actually now reuse it here inside of n8n. Okay. Another one is a generic one, and that's what you will mostly use for those actual APIs that don't have an n8n integration or don't have credentials that you put in. You can actually now choose the type of authentication. So there is usually bearer, which is the most common one. There's header, authentication. Then you've got OAuth and so on. But usually, many times when you're doing API calls, it's usually a bearer token. Okay. Some will have a basic authentication, and then with those ones there, you can actually add your own credential. All right. So I can actually click on create new credential, and then it's simply a username and password. And that one is like literally enter an email, enter a password. That's it. Okay. That's a very basic authentication. It'll actually go and do that. Now, many times you're going to be either sending headers, query parameters, or you're going to be sending along the actual body, which will be usually in JSON, where you're putting in data and information. All right. So this is the sort of stuff that happens inside of here. And then you got additional options as well. Those options include, batching things, ignoring SSL lowercase, responses, and how to handle those responses. All right. So based on the response, you can actually, choose those types. You can auto detect the different formats of how you want those responses. Timeout. So how long before you say, you know what, I'm done with this. Let's just end it. It could be 5 seconds. It could be 10 seconds. Totally up to you. You put that information there. Now, if there is any form of errors, you can actually now make it where instead of stopping on a workflow on an error, you can actually have it continue or continue using the error output. And then you've got these other options here. So you could choose to have SSL certificates, but you have to provide those. You can make it so that it always outputs data. Many times you want to do that where it's like, you know what, it outputted nothing, but that's fine. Maybe your next step, it'll detect whether it's nothing or not. All right. And so before we head out, let me just also share with you some really important things to consider, especially whenever you're using the HTTP node. This is something that happens a lot, and you're going to get many of these different, outputs along your day-to-day usage of the HTTP node. 400 bad requests, whenever you're seeing that, usually I found it to be, malformed or not correctly formed JSON parameters. All right, so you're not actually sending the correct stuff, or you've kind of set it up incorrectly. So try and take a look and see what you're sending and how you're sending it. All right, sometimes it's a missing, quote at the end of a JSON, or missing comma or whatever, but usually you'll get something like that. The 403 forbidden is literally you've put in the wrong information. All right, so either you've got an email and password that's incorrect, or it's no longer valid. So take a look by actually going to the main website that you're trying to access and try putting the same information in. And more than likely, it's like the password expired, or you entered the information incorrectly. All right, so you want to just check that out. 404 not found is the easiest one, in my opinion, a lot, because it's like you had a typo. All right, this actual website doesn't exist. That's what it is. So it's usually a typo, and many times, especially when you're doing n8n flows where you're actually connecting up data, and it's like custom dynamic data that you're trying to make a URL from some of the information that you got from the past, chances are that URL information came back as null or empty, and it's like, it's not going to find that. All right. So 404 errors are generally that, it's just the URL doesn't exist. 429, this one is usually a wait node that you need. All right. So whenever, you are having a lot of calls going out, and I see this all the time in like Google, for example, you're trying to send it to a Google API and you're just moving too fast. All right. You're going to need to get a wait node at that point, because the rate limits have gone into effect, and it's like, it's blocking you. And so whenever that happens, you want to put it inside a wait node inside of that entire flow that you're doing. And something like 5 seconds might work. You just want to check the API documents. In Google, for sure, 5 seconds has worked for me. And when you're doing a lot of that updating, that's when, having the wait timer really helps. And also doing things in batches. All right. So if for example, you're sending a whole bunch of rows into a Google Sheet, and you're going to hit it too many times, well, then you could actually batch things out. And so that's a more advanced technique. But yeah, if you know that you're doing that and you're hitting a HTTP node a lot and you're getting these rate limit 429s, then put a wait node before it or after, especially if it's in a loop, and that should help things out. Our 500 errors are usually when the information that's being passed is not correct, all right, in some way, shape, or form. And so what I would recommend in those situations is try and do it manually first. More than likely, you're going to find that there's something missing. Maybe the stuff that you're sending is not JSON, right? So if it's supposed to be JSON text, well, maybe it's not, right? Or maybe it's not formatted correctly. Whatever it is, this is throwing an error, and it's usually because of some JSON data not being, correctly formatted. All right, so that's what I have found. Hopefully this one helps you out, but keep it as a reference, especially when you're using the HTTP node. This is what you're going to see a lot of times when you're actually, making all your workflows. So now if you want more information on the HTTP node, definitely the n8n documents are by far some of the best. It's going to get you up and running and, help you out there. But there's a lot of information on this node here as well. What you could do with it, and even more detail than what I've actually explained. But my goal was to give you a little bit more of an intermediate take on this actual node here. And then, of course, these are some of the common errors that you're going to go through as well. All right, of course, all the different 400s. I went through some of those as well. But, the idea here is that you could go to these sites for n8n and read up on that documentation. And definitely, you want to bookmark it using this star right here and bookmark that. And at the end of the day, the more you learn, the better you're going to be at it. Well, there you have it. We went into a little bit more of a deep dive on the HTTP node, and I'm going to do more of these actual node trainings over the next weeks and months ahead. And this is very, very useful, especially if you're diving into n8n and you want to learn more on how to use this incredible automation tool and system out there. Then definitely check out these videos, and please do join my school community and be part of the n8n community. That's by visiting community.n8n.io. Well, thanks so much for joining me in this video here today. I hope you learned something new, and I look forward to seeing you in another video. Take care. Bye-bye.